Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison, and I want to welcome you to day 206 of Humanity Rising. And I want to wish everyone happy St. Patrick's Day. This is a time of the year, the 17th of March, when everyone celebrates the Irish and St. Patrick. It's worth just remembering for a moment who he was. He was called the Apostle to Ireland in the 4th century. He was the one that brought Christianity to the Irish. But the Irish were very clever. They absorbed Christianity without losing their pre-Christian spiritual traditions. And whether it was St. Patrick or St. Birgit, the powerful Christian Druidic nun, the Irish were able to sustain their love of the earth, their love of the leprechauns, and it was out of that amalgamation of Christianity and the pre-Christian Druidic Celtic spirituality that the greatness of Ireland really emerged as a spiritual tradition. You've probably looked at the book or read Cahill's book on how the Irish saved civilization in the 6th and 7th, 8th centuries, working so powerfully to preserve the ancient wisdom within the context of the rising power of the Christian religion. So welcome today to the Irish. And in the spirit of the Irish, let us take a pause as we begin our program today. Let us center ourselves in our bodies. Let us take a few deep breaths. Let's close our eyes and put our attention on our hearts. Listen to our heartbeats. In a spirit of deep thanksgiving and deep gratitude that we're alive at this extraordinary moment in the human journey. Thank you, everyone. And now, with an open heart and a heart full of gratitude for each and every one of you, I want to commence our program today by recalling, first of all, the extraordinary session that we had 2 days ago on race, a global scourge to our human condition, where it was commented upon that in the end, race is a question of consciousness. And then yesterday, celebrating the 90th year of the great psychiatrist and psychonaut Stan Grof, Again, we traverse the layers of consciousness. And whether we start our exploration of what it means to be human through cellular biology, or the deep recesses of our collective consciousness, it's our spiritual intelligence that in the end determines everything that we are. If we look around the world today, our problems are not technical. We have solutions for every single problem and challenge and crisis confronting humanity. And most of these technologies have been around for years. But our consciousness, our spiritual intelligence is not commensurate with the challenges we face. And therefore, our world is spinning further and further out of control. So this question of our spiritual intelligence, how we activate the consciousness necessary to solve our problems, is probably the most important question we need to ask ourselves in the entire world. And that's why Humanity Rising is here. Day after day, we're probing how we quicken our spiritual intelligence. So we're very pleased today to be dedicating an entire session on this matter. And to commence our program, I'd like to turn once again to my very good friend and colleague, Peter Merry, the Chief Innovation Officer of Ubiquity University, who is really the one, he's really our mastermind. You talk about spiritual intelligence. Peter has a very large quotient and has conceived our curriculum and guided our pathway since the very beginning as a co-founder of our university. So Peter, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Jim. Good to be back. And on this St. Patrick's Day, where normally I would be playing a concert with my Irish-Scottish band, but because of COVID, we're not able to, but I am wearing my little clover here in honor of that and of my half Irish grandmother. These were actually knitted by somebody who brought them to our concert one year and gave one to everybody. So great to be back. And yeah, exciting session today. And so I'd like to welcome Anatoly to Humanity Rising, who's been doing amazing work in Russia with, I say, and broadly an integral evolutionary perspective on reality and helping particularly that society to feel into that perspective and work out what it means to actually adopt it and work with it really concretely. Now, Anatoly, yeah, just say a few words of welcome, introduction first before I'm going to give everybody a little framing on spiral dynamics first, so that we've all got the same language, because I don't want to assume that everybody's familiar with the approach. But Anatoly, why don't you just say hi to everybody?
I say hi. My name is Anatoly, and I have one simple gift to give you. I'm a writer. I write fairy tales for adults, and I have a short fairy tales been translated into English, and I love to share it with you. It's all me in there. It's all my sort of spiritual intelligence I have. I try to give in this text, short text, and I love it so much. I'll read it, I'll share it as long as I live. So I'll start with my present, and I'll put it in a chat here. So this is a link for me, present for me, short fairy tale about everything is connected, everything is knitted, actually. So this is me, this is my fairy tale, and my name is Anatoly.
Great, thank you, Anatoly. Yeah, I've read it. It's really beautiful. So I'm sure you'll share the link in the chat, won't you? And everybody will be able to access it. So So the context that connected Anatoly and myself was working with this model called spiral dynamics, which is really a map of the landscape of our individual and collective human development. And as ever with any model or map, it's important not to confuse the map with the landscape. So it's as useful as it is in terms of how well it helps us to read the landscape of what we see going on. So I'm going to give you a very brief description of it so that you know what we're talking about when we go into it in more detail, and Anatoly tells us about some of his work. Essentially, it emerged, was developed by a guy called Clare Graves, who lived around the same time as Maslow. And they actually knew each other well. And you'll notice some similarities between Maslow's pyramid and the spiral dynamics. The main difference is that where Maslow sees it stopping at the top of the pyramid, Clare Graves said, no, it doesn't stop. It just keeps going, because these different ways of dealing with the world create certain solutions, but they generate new problems that need solving by a next level of complexity afterwards. And actually, at the end of his lifetime, Maslow agreed with Graves that indeed it wasn't a closed pyramid, but it was an open-ended dynamic system that kept unfolding. So it's really a map of the mindsets, the underlying codes that inform how people see the world on the one level, as well as a description of how we have developed collectively as humanity over time. So what's fascinating about it is the pathway it describes we can see in our collective history, but we can also see in the development of the human being from the moment they're born right up into adulthood. So it's a code, it's a pattern that seems to lie behind our individual and collective journeys. So I'm just going to share with you one visual of it and talk through it very briefly. So these are the stages of development as identified in the initial research by Clare Graves and then further developed by Dr. Don Beck and Chris Cowan. And it starts on the left, as it were, and kind of moves its way towards the right developmentally. And it starts with simply the survival level, just like you'd expect at Maslow. If you don't stay alive, you can forget all the rest, basically. And what happens once we've got that in place, we've got that survival in place, is the next thing that emerges is this need for connection and safety and sense of belonging, which in our collective journey was when we kind of moved over to from more looser bands of hunter-gatherers into more tribal structures. Both of those value systems are essentially pre-cognitive and pre-rational, so they're much more experiential, and they have an instinctive experience of the world as interconnected. Without sitting down and discussing it, it's just the way the world is experienced. Now, what happens next is the emergence of the sense of separate self in red, and that is psychologically the sense of the ego. Collectively, it was when we moved from kind of tribal structures into feudal empires. It's in our childhood development. It's the kind of emergence two or three years of the child who starts going I, mine, me, for the first time and realizes that there's me and then there's the rest. And until that moment, they actually experience themselves as one with the mother, which is why any separation, premature separation, is so traumatic. Now, what happens after that kind of crystallization of the self, which then suddenly realizes there's this very threatening world around it, a world full of opportunity, but it needs to kind of dominate and be strong in this world to survive and thrive. And then when you've got all of that exploding, of course, it creates quite a lot of chaos around you. And so what emerges next in the blue system is the need for a sense of order and structure. So if all of this red energy is going to coexist, there's going to have to be some rules for everybody to play by to be able to channel it. Now, what you may have picked up is you see there are these two axes of the warm colors at the top and the cool colors at the bottom. The warm colors represent an I focus, a yang focus, an express self focus. And the cool colors represent a collective yin sacrifice self focus. So you give up the needs of the self to fit into the collective. So what we're doing on our journey is we're swinging between these yin yang poles. And when we get too much yang, too much of that red, that's the express self, we feel the need to swing back and to fit into something else. But we don't go back to where we've been before. We don't go back to purple, because that purple we intelligence has been colored by the red complexity to give us blue. So what happens after we've kind of been in this blue world, which is collectively where the nation states emerged, the religions emerged, everything that had a hierarchy, where everybody knew their place, where you were either rewarded or punished for your actions, depending on whether you followed the rules of the particular order that you were a part of or not. And there's something actually, some of us, I certainly in the past have had an allergy to that blue system, but when we reintegrate it, and you can really appreciate, it actually gives you a lot of rest and peace, because you know your place in the system. You just follow the rules. Like you don't think, am I going to cross the road now, even though the light's red, even though there's no car coming? No, you wait until the light turns green and then you cross the road. You just follow the rules. And so, so that blue in a way lays the foundations of civilization in terms of people having a set of agreements to live together. Now, once that's become a little bit suffocating, what emerges next is the next desire for the self to express itself more. And that's where you get this orange entrepreneurial self. But rather than the red kind of no rules Wild West expression, it's now expressing itself in the context of a set of collective agreements. And so that is when you got the emergence of the market economy, the whole free market, everything that were the kind of Thatcher and Reagan really pushed onto the world stage. That was an expression of this code. Doesn't mean it has to be the only expression of it, but the Industrial Revolution, it was the time of growth and the individual trying to find their way in the world and be the best, and questioning the things that were taken on faith at blue because the priest said it was that way, and saying, well, actually, I'm going to look through my telescope, or I'm going to look through my microscope, and I'm going to check whether that's true or not. I'm going to engage my rational intelligence to see whether those things are true. And together we're going to explore the world and not just take things on faith. Of course, that led to many burnings and all sorts of traumas for people in that transition, because anybody in power doesn't like their perspective being challenged. But that was the move to the scientific rational mindset. Now, this is all about the entrepreneurial achiever self, really getting ahead and being the best. Now, once you've kind of, in a way, outgrown that, when you feel you've achieved and you've got all this stuff and you've made it to the top, you often kind of then go, well, how come I'm still not happy? And what happens then is that we go inside and we go on a little inner journey and become more sensitive to our inner worlds of emotion and feeling, and more sensitive to that world in other people as well. So we then expand our awareness to try to include more people and be fairer to other people and make sure that they're heard, that they have a place. And now it's no longer about being the best and getting to the top. It's about harmony and including as many people as possible so that they feel heard and involved. There's an intrinsic caring that emerges at the green level for the planet and for other people. Now, this is what Graves called the first tier systems. And the reason he made this distinction between first tier and second tier is that he noticed in the data that there was a big leap in the ability to solve complex problems between those first tier systems and this yellow one that emerged next. And the main reason for that was that each of these first tier value systems believe that theirs is the only true value system, is the only correct way to see the world. And so they become very attached and identified with their own worldview, like be it orange or green or blue, whatever it is. And yellow, for the first time, in a way, dissociates themselves from their identity, is able to take some distance from how they see themselves and realize that it's not one of these value systems being right or wrong. It's about all of them having a role to play in the system as a whole. And yellow cares about solving the great challenges before us, the great global challenges. And it doesn't really care about people's opinions about things. It cares about what works. So what are we going to knit together functionally, all these different pieces, to try to create the problems, create the solutions to the problems that we're facing. So it's kind of systems thinking, taking an approach to include all the different pieces, a helicopter view. But yellow really reaches the limits of the cognitive mind. And that is what triggers the emergence of turquoise. Because where yellow starts from all the parts and tries to stitch them together into a whole, turquoise assumes the whole and notices how the parts can start to relate to each other in a more graceful way. So turquoise's starting point is more an intuitive knowing of the interconnectedness of all things, which doesn't mean it throws out the cognitive mind, but the cognitive rational mind follows the intuitive knowing rather than being in the lead as it is in yellow. So important to say is, in case you haven't picked it up already, it's not about any of these value systems being right or wrong, one being better than the other. It's about fit between the individual's value system and their habitat. So the prime directive of the spiral, as Don Beck would say, is making sure that we create habitats that meet people where they're at on their journey, because then they can be who they are, express themselves freely, and then if they've got energy over, they will naturally evolve a more complex understanding. But this is not about getting everybody to yellow. It's about understanding what value systems people inhabit, why they do, and meeting them where they're at to help them adopt whatever surface solutions might be needed for a more sustainable world, for example. So that was a big theory in a very short piece of time, but I will stop it there, and I'm sure that Anatoly will go into some more details. But Anatoly, do tell us a bit about, I know, maybe how you came across this perspective, why it inspires you, and how you started to bring it into your context, your habitat over there in Russia.
Well, I have several slides to show, but before I show my slides, I'd like to say thank you, Peter, for inviting me on this amazing meeting, and thank you for this brief but quite good and amazing presentation of this evolutionary idea that your personal life is implemented, is involved in a life of humanity, in a human history, that your achievements, your disappointment, your love, your hate, your pain, your everything could be considered as an echo, as a trace of the hundreds and thousands years of human history. So you personally reinventing the humanity in yourself.
Beautiful.
And this idea, once was appeared in my mind, gave me so much energy, and has been giving. I really appreciate English language and try to practice it every time. So it gives me energy through all those years I have spent to make this idea popular here in Russia, and I quite succeed. I'll tell you about it. And first of all, may I ask a question to our audience? All of us, we can write messages in our chat. Can I ask Are you familiar with this model somehow? And could you please type a plus symbol if you are at least a little bit familiar with spiral dynamics, and a minus symbol if you are not. So I could rely on it with my speech to come. And thank you. I see minuses. So thank you very much. And I'll try not to speak with this colored language we have, which is about labeling the stages, as Peter had shown us. So, well, spiral dynamics and that evolutionary intelligence ideas, they are quite complicated. I mean, in the books, now I'd like to show you my presentation, and you should see my screen now.
Looking very sharp there, Anatoly, in that photo.
Yeah, and quite Russian, right? No smiling, very serious. And this is me. My name is Anatoly, and hello. And my next slide is you can see those colors Peter had mentioned. And also, I'd like to show you this knitted thing. It's soft, it's warm, and it's Russian doll. And it needs knitted Russian doll. And inside, it has several other dolls. And I can explain spiral dynamics. Oh, whoa. Too fast.
Hey, Anatoly, I want one of those.
Yeah, explain spiral dynamics by placing beige one into purple one, a purple one into red one, and explaining that we all have our colored history. We all have our ways to be human. Like for now, we can like see that we have sort of very complicated, very spiritual, very intellectual, green, yellow, or even Tokyo's point of view, mindset, but inside of us, we all have body. If you want to drink, you stop listening. You go and you have to drink some water because your beige part of you wants to be loved. If, for example, if your mother or your kid or what call you, you stop listening this because your purple string, your kin spirit needs to pay attention. We all are complicated. We all have inside all of these ways to be human. See?
Yep.
And this is our way to work with organizations. Like very common way when people first know about spiral dynamics, it has level metaphor. So our achiever inside, it's I need to be in the highest level fast. So bring me there. And Peter said, it's not the idea for us to be yellow or turquoise, but achiever will disagree. Achiever will say, no, I want to be yellow. Please, I can give you money, but bring me to yellow. And the idea of our work, we call it downstairs by the ladder leading upstairs. We try to work with first stages. We need to get our like beige lenses and look at the organization. Is this air is breathable? I mean, can you bring more light here? Are you really okay with your furniture? No, what is it? What is that smell in your toilet? Can you take it out? Okay, can you get rid of it? Is there any ways for us to take care about beige way to be human? and then you can rely on it and go further, and then you find a purple way. Do you have any traditions? What is your personal, your way to drink tea? The only way you drink tea is like this. No one else drinks tea like that. You do. How do you do that? And what do you missing when you go out? Oh, for example, when you like get sick and spend several weeks or months out of your organization, what do you miss really? Where is your soul in purple way? And so step by step, we like make every layer, make every stage of spiral dynamics healthier as possible. And then you can rely on it and more and more and more. And then you find yourself solving the problems which were unsolvable, which you couldn't find solution, but you have rebuilt your ways to be human. You rebuilt your values. You rebuilt the whole way of your corporate culture works. And we have several good experiences in that. And we have our results, and we're very proud about our work. And this is how we do apply spiral dynamics. But
I think Anatoly,
yeah.
Just go back. I think it's a lovely image, by the way, you've created of the spiral there. I think you're right that what's so important is those foundational levels, because often, particularly in the West, we're very up in the cognitive kind of realms, and
exactly.
Lots of strong orange and green, but we actually often hold quite a lot of trauma from the beige purple kind of pre-rational phases, either from collective things or from kind of childhood issues or whatever. And if those haven't been if those aren't integrated and transformed, then they distort like the rest of the spiral. So if there's an earlier phase that's at a kilt that is not properly integrated, it like filters through all the other stages of development, which is why it's so important to go back to the body, to the relational level, to that precognitive emotional dimension as well. So it's so great that, and I love the way you're saying in the organizations, you start from the bottom up, as it were, and make sure those foundations are healthy before jumping up. Because a lot of consultants are kind of straight in at strategy and business plans and everything else. Whereas if the foundations are not healthy, then you won't get a healthy even implementation of your strategy.
I'm personally proud of one of my results. It was at 2015 when all that my personal shame was started with our crazy relationships with Ukraine. And every time I have a possibility to say it, let me say it, that this is awful stuff that we started. I mean, Kremlin and our government started with Ukraine, and I tried to do my best to make this somehow easier and help my friends in Kiev, in Ukraine. And I been to Kiev and I had my seminars there. And one of my I'm very proud of that result. They said, first of all, when I asked them, what should you do to make your country great? They said, we need to go we need social innovations, we need business innovations, we need, as in this model, we need orange and we need green and maybe sometimes we need yellow. And when they realized the all complexity of the spiral, the beauty of this model, they said, oh, we need what we actually need. We need healthy blue. We need to rely, we need to trust, we need to rely on a law, we need to get rid of corruption, we need to believe, actually believe in the government. We need to, we need transparent politics. We need transparency, see? And this is what we actually need. And then Orange, the entrepreneur stage and the social stage will appear naturally.
Yeah.
And they just cannot appear because you cannot rely. It's like your leg is in pain, and you try to rely on it, but it's you feel bad. So get your leg healthy so you can step, you can go faster. See?
I mean, Anatoly, a kind of thing I'd wanting to ask you, because it's a story that I think I've heard Don tell as well, from the fall of the Soviet Union and the wall and communism at that time. He often tells this story where he says what you had there was a very strong blue kind of and red system that was holding things in place. And when the wall came down and communism fell, basically it stripped away that blue layer. So what it revealed was this very raw red kind of Wild West warlords, essentially. And what the West then naively did was try to drop a free market economy straight into that context, without having built up the blue layer of order, which is why all the kind of corrupt folks ended up becoming the top people in business, because they got hold of it when everything was privatized. They got hold of it all. So you got that red streaming straight into orange. And because of the lack of that blue layer, of a healthy state, of the healthy governance and laws, that really created so many problems for the kind of post-Soviet Russia, because of the inability of the West to see beyond its own lens, as it were, or which is why this perspective for me is so important, because then you understand, no orange until blue is in place.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And when Don came into Russia, he said that you have red orange stages together, and actually you try to look orange, I mean Russia, but because of you have lack of blue, actually you use red ways to solve your problems. And it's very common. It's very often we see that in all organizations we work with, because people, when I told them about the spiral as you did recently, I say step by step. And when I told people about blue, it feels like boring level, boring stage. Well, nothing interested in there, because you have instructions, you have discipline there. It's not necessary. Let's get rid of blue and go straight to that entrepreneur stage. And when they realized, well, for me, I try to give that model, I try to explain it through stories. I try to explain it not intellectually. I tell a lot of stories when I try to explain it, and I try to because it's about values. If it's about values, you need to feel it. You cannot analyze values through your head, through your brain. You need to analyze values through your heart. So when they realize that blue is about honesty, blue is about honor, blue is about transparent business, blue is about belief in the future, blue is about faith, actually, they say, oh, we don't have that at all. Because actually it wasn't only in the latest 90s that we had an issue with blue, with order, with laws. In all 20th century, Russia has been having a lot of problems with belief in law, because in Great October, as we call it, Great October Revolution in 1917, we get rid of the Tsar, we get rid of the Orthodox Church, we get rid of the belief system we had, and we found ourselves in a civil war. We found ourselves being red. And then Stalin had built a new, like, sort of blue system. And then it was broken in 90s again. So we have twice our faith, our belief system in law, in order, in transparency, in honor, in honesty, was broken. And this is why we have difficulties to really establish our entrepreneur stage, because first of all, what we actually need, we need to rebuild our faith in law. Everyone here has an experience to give money to policemen. Everyone. I have that experience, and they took it, and it's okay. And we all have that lack of being honest with ourselves.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, the map in that way gives us real clarity in terms of seeing the landscape. In fact, just before this call, I was doing a little presentation to a team I'm working with at the World Bank and their global finance facility, who are working with helping to improve the healthcare systems in developing countries. And in the first pilot program of this leadership program that I'm working on, we've got 4 countries, and it was so important for people to understand the value systems, because if you come in with too much complexity, all that money just goes straight down the drain.
Exactly.
You've got to understand, if the purple red is the context, you've got to meet the people where they're at and the communities with purple red responses and enough blue to help it, structure and move on. But that perspective is so critical in terms of also how money is spent in overseas development work. For example, there's been a lot of naivety from NGOs, development NGOs, who come out of green thinking, oh, we'll just kind of do our do-good kind of green stuff and drop it into a red context, and boom, there goes your money, and there's no, not the results that you were hoping for. So,
and also we have sort of good news here, because in we have we are much more free now in comparison with Soviet Union. We have a possibility to build our businesses quite independently. So business after business, we built a new and unique corporate culture. And I saw corporate culture with healthy blue inside. I saw corporate culture with transparent laws. I saw corporate cultures then people can rely of the documents they have. And when I have a possibility to rely on a document, it feels like a brick wall between me and problems. So it's a very blue system when I can see that my future is protected by the document or something, like by the agreement we have. So and I see, well, I have I know that we will have we will build our healthy blue, because it's an evolutionary law. And one of my clients, when she revealed the whole elegance, the whole beauty of that model, she said that I have a strong feeling, I believe in evolution, some sort of, that I have my issues, I have my doubts, I have a very aggressive and very my boss could not respect me somehow, someday, and so on. But I know that it could be changeable. Everything could be evolved in other ways to be human. So this is a sort of, as I said, your involvement to realize that human history comes through your life. Mm-hmm. So it's a natural, very natural way to build your corporate culture, to build the health of your corporate culture in this way. Yeah. So when people with strategic intelligence, when people quite clever, when they realize that ideas, they say, oh, this is why, as you said, our money just went
evaporates.
away. Yeah. Yes, evaporates. So
tell us some more stories about how you've been applying this perspective in Russia and some of the impact you've been having.
Well, let me show you a little.
Harriet is just asking, because Anatoly, we of course have slipped into the colors and things, has said, have you got a slide where you've got a like I had up at the beginning, where there was actually the labels on the value systems?
Oh, well, I definitely do not have that in English.
I wonder if I'm able to put it in the chat, actually. No. Okay.
So,
I'll see if I can put a link to it somewhere.
Okay, so let me not to worry about it. So if it takes time to find. Maybe.
Tell us some stories about application, how you've been using it and the impact it's been having.
Okay. Well, this is 2 books of we have translated in English, and I was an editor and translator of those books. And first one was translated in 2009, and the second one in 2019. So they are, especially first one, so much complicated language. And my task, I want to make these ideas useful, and because it has a lot of intellectual barrier in front of you to implement those ideas. My way is not to make it easier, it's not to make it simpler, but make it more useful. Mm-hmm. And this is why I tell a lot of stories about it, and I try to explain it through stories. Mm. Spiraldynamics.ru works has been working since 2009, and I'm sort of proud of it. We have cards. Let me show it. We have 80 colored cards. See? Each one has a bright side and a dark side. And you can play with each other. And one of you could play for dark side, one of you could play for bright side. It also has a possibility to organize them as a tower, so you can build a 3D structure with them. So you can show the idea that one stages rely on previous stages, and we have 9 participants left until 4,500 participants in our Facebook group about spiral dynamics. This is the biggest national spiral dynamics Facebook group in the world. Right. And let me tell you why. Peter asked me to.
Yeah, I was going to ask. I was going to say, why do you think that
why? And again, this is because we respect cleverness in ourselves. We respect clever articles. We respect intelligence. We know that second-tier thinking is very amazing, is very important. But as we think, and our idea is that first-tier thinking and first stages, first steps are very important. So we touch our participants, we touch people, we resonate with their values in their first ways to be human, in their first ways of first steps of spiral dynamics. And this is why we show, we place a lot of posts with resonating illustrations of the first tier. And people say, why? Why is this beige? Why is this purple? Why is this red? What comes after what? And we have that quite simple questions. And when people realize that there is a sort of model, sort of a map behind it, they go deeper, and we have a growing community. A year ago, I had my presentation, I had replaced this slide like several minutes before this my speech. And on the previous slide, I was preparing for Ben Seganti for a conference in online conference in May last year. It was 3,941, as I believe. So we have like 500 new participants in a year. So in this complicated, in this very intellectual model, I think it's a good result, because I think this sort of intellectual perspective, this sort of this way to look at your organization, at your school, at your hospital, at your family, at your city. We've been working with a national initiative, we call it Living Cities. Living Cities is a very, great project, which is about how to make your city more alive. So when you got this perspective to realize that the whole evolution of human consciousness is now within you, is now in your hands, is now very clear, present in your values, in your ways to think about your issues, your solutions, and this sort of thinking, we call it evolutionary intelligence, and I love to share it.
Anatoly, a few people are asking whether the cards that you've created are available in English or not.
Well, we work on it. We need help. Actually, we're working on it. We need help with translations, and definitely we would like you to have those cards, and actually they are amazing. And my colleagues, we started to sell it in December, and for now we have more than 100 boxes purchased already. So
okay, well, let us know when they're up.
Yeah.
But let us know on the UbiVerse. Put a post out on the UbiVerse.
Yeah. So thank you for your interest. I definitely will do it. And actually, we need some help with translations, and we need help with illustrations, because sometimes I wonder if this or that illustration will be understandable in Western culture, because they quite illustrative for me, because but it could rely on some fairy tales or some cultural symbols that we have here, but maybe you could not understood what it
Yeah.
was all about.
Good
So
point. Hey, what has been your most exciting project applying this, where you've kind of seen, you know, the biggest impact, or really seen it kind of work?
It was a project who lasted for 6 months. It was a company, a big mining company here in Russia, and it was actually one department of that company, supply department, and it has 412 employees there. So we hadn't said to them, to all those employees, that we have some sort of model standing behind what we do. We had a seminar for their bosses, but we asked them not to share for everybody, because it could be naturally. It not could be for, like, they try to implement some sort of model on us, and we do not want to be in a shape of this model. We are bigger than that. We don't want that discussions. So we tried to rely on as I told you, a beige, a purple, and we had several weeks. We had, as I remember, we had a beige month, we have a purple month, we had a red month, and on beige month, we asked them, do you need more pencils? Do your air is good enough? Do you need more light in your room? And our first victory was the photo of the complete broken floor. I mean, a photo from the office, and they had I don't know how to say it in English. Their floor was like awful, and they stepped over it, and they got used to step over it. And when we asked them, do you have something to fix? We got that photo, and they fixed it like in the next day. And their boss, who in which office they have that broken floor, say, oh, you shouldn't send those photos. You should tell me, and I'll fix it like in an hour. But you told everybody that we have that ugly floor, and why should you? But we got him, like, the big boss, and she is amazing person. She is very spiritual, very intellectual woman, and the main boss of that supply department. She told him, be quiet, this is our first result, and we now rely on a very straight, very healthy floor, and it should be clean. Everything should be enough. And this was our first result. On purple month, we asked them to separate themselves in a clans. So we mixed them, the list of those people. They were working in several cities, different cities, and we mixed them, and they had a clan of the Iron Fist. One of the clans has named Iron Fist, as I remember. The second clan was like it was 2 years ago. I start to forget what the names of the clan, but they draw a symbol of the clan, and they have invented the traditions, how you recognize the member of your clan. So should you do something with your fingers, or should you blink somehow in a specific way? Why do you think this person is in your clan or not? So we reinvented traditions, and we asked them to share what kind of traditions you have. What is your ritual to drink tea? What is your ritual to celebrate birthdays? What is your ritual to celebrate this and this? And they realized that they have a specific amazing rituals. Like I'm kind of keeping that stories, and one of that story is very amazing. And maybe you can help me with the name of the thing. Like, what is the name of the? What is the name of the wooden thing that helps you to calculate arithmetics? You
Oh
know,
yeah,
you know how do you
which has
like
like beads on it.
5 to the lathe, 5 to the
An abacus.
abacus.
Yeah.
So they had that sort of ancient abacus, like maybe not ancient, but it's like 30 years of that abacus, and they had them placed on a wall. And that abacus was they belonged to a great man, a founder of their community, a founder of their business, and they very much respect him. And he retired, but his abacus was placed on a wall. And every time they want to count something, they sort of look at the abacus and so on. Then they moved to another office, and they forgot, they lost that abacus.
Oh,
And they got it was so, I mean,
romantic.
though their emotions was down, and though their numbers they start to not match with I mean, how can I say?
They were underperforming.
Yeah,
from a business
because we don't have that abacus anymore.
Yeah.
And suddenly they have found them. That abacus, they have found it in a box, and that box should be dropped away in a garbage. Like in a very final moment, they saw that abacus and they cried out loud, "Oh, this is it!" And they place it again on the wall, and they said, "Finally, our numbers will be okay, because those abacus is here with us again." And they recalled a lot of so pre-rational traditions, pre-rational, and they started to love it. They started to pay attention to it. They started to rely on it. They started to respect it. That, well, it's not very rational. It's your numbers is broken not because you have no any abacus on your wall. It's stupid to think like that. But no, somehow, some way, yes, our numbers is broken right because we don't have no abacus here.
Well, when you understand that each new value system builds on the previous one, you know that if something is broken at purple, then something's going to be broken at orange as well. And it's, you see this a lot in, organizational constellations, where people look at the energetics of organizations. You often see that a blockage is coming because a founder is not being seen anymore, is not being kind of recognized anymore. And that founder's energy is so important to the system as a whole. So if the founder has somehow been kicked out, or the transition where the founder let go, and didn't go well, then often you see those reverberations across the organization as a whole. And that's really that, as you say, that pre-rational purple energy is so important as a foundation, and yet so much not part of our business schools and the way we think about organizational development normally. Like, who would think, if your numbers were dropping, to look at the missing abacus rather than rather than your kind of whatever it is, your financial reporting, whatever else it is. And, great example.
Next month we were fighting because it was Red Month, and on Red Month we united them in two large groups. And first group was arguing with the second group. Each one of them actually was arguing with each other. and they was blaming in the problems of unexisted company. We have invented, like created unexisted company. We have invented sort of a case, but that case was very familiar to them, only unless the name of the company was different. But we created a sort of a safe situation to fight, to blame each other, because it's not our company, it's not existing company, and we have found a lot of conflicts there, and we realized that if we create that safe situation to share what problems do you have, people start to share that. And on Blue Month, we tried to solve those conflicts we have found on the Red. But Red fighting was the most exciting month. They remember it very much, very clear. And they love to arguing with each other. No, it's your fault. No, it's not mine. It's your fault, and so on.
Yeah. I mean, the Red is the most exciting system. It's got
More
the most
powerful
energy. It's really the creative and it's really the eros of the whole system. That expresses itself in different ways, and it has to be, because it has to have power to break the boundaries of purple. To emerge, because they're so strong. Those boundaries, to be able to break through and enable that self-expression to emerge, requires a lot of energy. The challenge, is that in a healthy system, having broken out and developed the identity, as it were, of the individual, and release that power and self-expression, is to be able to transcend, but then include those earlier systems. And I think that transition from beige and purple to red may well be the most challenging transition, and one that is the most traumatic, both individually and collectively for us, because the freedom that emerges with that express self, power driven, red system, with the emergence of the ego, is so great that we may forget, or we may turn around and kind of cut off the head of the past, as it were, rather than being able to reintegrate it, so that powerful self-express energy is held in the kind of intrinsic interconnectedness that is there in the beige and the purple.
We called it Integral School. Integral.school is actual website of our, but unfortunately it's again in Russian, but we described our work there. But I have a presentation where I was preparing for Ben Siganti for that our work, and I think I should share with you that presentation, and you could see our results and numbers. And by the way, the most exciting for me, not for them, as you said, you're right, that red was very powerful for them, but for me, I was nearly crying, because when the red month was over, we started to get the feedback. What is the rules of that fight? Why are we fighting? Is there any ways for us to get peace, to bring peace? Is there any way for us to get an agreement? Where is the end of this fight? And I thought, and they didn't know about no spiral dynamics at all. And I saw that organization reinvent spiral dynamics. They reinvent the natural way of appearance of the next mindset, next way to be human.
That's what you really call the evolutionary intelligence, right?
Exactly.
That is evolutionary intelligence.
And then we showed these results, I mean, these letters, this feedback to the boss, and she said, wow, and this is how it works, actually. We reinvent our healthy spiral, our healthy layers to rely on.
One of the lessons of that, Anatoly, is we can trust that if we put the right conditions in place, that life will organize itself into the the form that it needs to deal with its
Exactly.
current challenges. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And then we have a blue month. We have a month of transparency. We tried to create as much transparency as we can in all their business process. Supply department is like a cursed department, because everyone think that they stealing. Everyone think that they are thieves, because they have a lot of money to spend, and they know that there is some ways to spend it in my pocket. But I don't know actually, but I was very much I trust that woman who organized that department, and I saw that people, and I saw them also nearly crying when they share that every time we have that how can I say, like people saw on us, and I saw that they don't trust us. Like we work very hard to find any materials, any tools you want, and yet you don't trust us. And it was so sort of pain for them to find to how to explain other departments of that company that we work clearly, and transparency became an answer. We need to make all our business processes as transparent as we can, so people will see that there is no way for us to steal. See?
Yep.
And when they found some, my idea was to create sort of a manifest of supply department, manifest of values, a list of sentences that we have our honor to work with honesty, for example, one of the sentences. And there were 10, and the last sentence, and when we created with them, I mean, not we consultants, but all of them work on this document. But when it was ready and we were reading it to their boss and to the team or who works on their transformation team, they were again nearly crying. They was on feelings, because the last sentence was, "We demand a respect for us. We demand you to respect our work." See? And it was very blue. It was very no, maybe we are not saints, but we honest people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
right.
when they placed that on a paper, it was amazing experience, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that
yeah,
we have
my experience is when you just work, I often call this organization by natural design.
Yeah.
Because when you work with what's just there, then people just feel it and they recognize it. It's not artificial in any way. I think, as for Humanity Rising and all the issues that we've been looking to address, the reason that an understanding, say, of these kind of dynamics of the value systems and the spiral is so important is because whatever the topic is, whether it's sustainability or peace or whatever, to be able to engage effectively with the people we're trying to reach, we need to understand what the underlying value systems are that motivate them, and therefore to be able to meet people where they're at in their particular value system and craft our message in such a way that it resonates with them and makes sense to them. And
Yeah.
the trick is to remember that's not necessarily the way that it best makes sense to us. But like, so who are the people we're trying to reach? What are the codes that are alive in them? And how do we craft and bring the messages and motivate them to change their behavior, let's say, in a way that fits their underlying value system codes? So I've often used sustainability as an example. How do you get people to become more sustainable? Well, green, that's easy. That's kind of intrinsic. Same with yellow. When you get to orange, orange needs to feel it's going to, be more successful because of its sustainable behavior. So orange will like, oh, I'll get myself a Tesla because then I look better than the neighbor or whatever. But they need to feel it's putting them on the path to progress. Blue, because they need to feel it's helping them serve the higher purpose that they're connected to. And it may be because in the Bible, God says, look after the land I created for you, or whatever it is. In red, it's because it's going to gain you more respect and give you more kind of power in your environment. So you can achieve the same outcome with very different underlying motivations. And that means that as change agents, which most of the people engaged in Humanity Rising are, people who are wanting to create change in the world around us, we really need to understand these codes because that is what gives us the code to be able to engage people effectively and get to their underlying motivations and kind of worldviews, so that they can see the reason for, let's say, adopting these new kind of behaviors or creating this kind of change in the world. So it's really great work, and I like this one as well with the guitar and the different strings. And tell us about this a little bit, and then we'll need to wrap up in a couple of minutes.
Yeah, because we have a question. You briefly showed a slide where you mentioned the link between music and spiral systems. Could you tell a bit more about it? As I told you, I'm a writer. I write fairy tales for adults, and one of my fairy tales is, you can see it in the chat as a gift for you. And I like to look at the models I use from a different perspectives and see something different. When you implement a level metaphor, you have a problem, because people ask you, how can I get on the highest level? Because it's sort of implemented in a model, when it's sort of a part of a model. If you explain a model through steps, the natural idea, I want to get to the highest step. And this is why I try to invent another or different metaphors to explain this idea. And one of these ideas is my Russian doll and the layers of it. And the next idea, we had a string metaphor. We have invented a string metaphor. I have invented a string metaphor, spiral dynamics. And actually, we've been using string metaphor since 12-15. And it's about music. When you're born, you have only one string, B string. And what you do, you try to get some rhythm from it. You try to be a master of survival, physical survival. And after several months, you realize that you are not going to die here, because everything is okay. Someone took care about you, and your life is not on a threat every time as you thought. And in this moment, you find a second string, purple string, and you try to communicate with other alive persons like you, with your family. And you realize that everything is alive. Every object is alive. Like a table is alive, a chair is alive, a TV set is alive, a mirror is alive, a spoon is, everything is alive there. And you try to make a music from purple string, but you got your red string right after you make your personal mastery, playing your personal music on both purple and beige strings. And then you got red string. You left previous two and start to get music only, to play music only from your third string, but you will get fourth string, blue string, only if you make an accord. How can I say that?
Chord.
A chord from three strings, from three previous strings.
Mm.
And all the metaphor is that you have your colored strings and your music become more and more complicated. Because your music, when you play it on only three strings, is easier to play on three strings than if you have six and you need to play it like properly. We need to play it an elegant way. You need to play it beautifully. So this is why we consider, you can consider your life is a way to become a master of more and more strings to play your music.
Yeah, great.
See? And you have, like, you can look around yourself and find people who play Rammstein through all of their lives, and you can find people who play Vivaldi through all of their lives, who can play like another sort of music. And people, for me, they are not standing on the steps, because every time I was lecturing, I made my lessons about spiral dynamics, and I was using steps or levels metaphor. Every time I had a question, Putin, on which level he is, on which level is Putin, on which level is Jesus, on which level is Elon Musk, on which level is Dalai Lama. And I was, every time I was on every level. They have every level, they have the spectrum, but sometimes in some circumstances, in some life conditions, they prefer this level on that level and so on. And this, it was not easy to explain that you have all spiral within you. So I have created the musical metaphor. And as for me, actually, it brings more peace in our conversations on our Facebook group. Because sometimes when you use level metaphor, sometimes you have like posts or comments like, for example, like Dalai Lama, he is Tokyo's, obviously, and he's on Tokyo's level, or Putin, he is on red level, obviously, or and if you point at someone and you place people on levels, every time you have a very complicated life which could not agree with you, because people are they are quite more complex than any your how can I say that Greek ancient legend, when a person named Procrust, I believe, he had a bed, and you can cut, you should cut his legs because his legs was not appropriate in the length of the bed. You know that legend, ancient. So I don't like a model who makes me limited.
Yeah, no, it's a great metaphor, and it really, as you say, helps to get away from people seeing it as a typology, because these aren't types.
Yes,
these are about stages of development that live and unfold in all of us, and they light up, depending on the different life conditions that we're in. So it's a lovely metaphor of the idea of being able to play, you know, master the different strings, as it were, of your, and increase the complexity of the music that you play. Hey, we're going to have to stop there, Anatoly, I'm afraid.
All right.
So I'm going to thank you very much for joining us. And there's another lovely photo of you looking very wise. And yeah, really great to hear how you've been using it in practice and your very grounded approach to it. Because like you, I believe this map is a particularly powerful map of the landscape that really does help us see ourselves in a more whole perspective, and more importantly, be able to honor other people for who they are. And this was kind of Claire Graves's powerful statement. He always said was like, someone has a right to be who they are. Damn it. That was his thing. So really, you know, the compassion behind the model, which is really about being able to respect people for where they are and helping to meet them based on the kind of way they see the world rather than trying to impose ours, is a beautiful thing. So I'm going to head back to hand us back to Jim, who will probably know certainly of the Greek story that you were referring to, because that's his area of expertise. But thanks again for joining us, and I'm sure we'll be in touch in the future.
What was the name of the guy who couldn't lie on a bed because his length of his body was bigger than the length of the bed, and the man said, "I should cut your leg off, so you should be
fit in the bed."
Fitting the bed. What was the name?
You think that's a Greek myth?
Yeah, Greek myth.
Oh,
yeah.
Dr. Garrison.
I remember the story, but not the name. You know, either you cut the sleeve to fit the arm, or you cut the arm to fit the sleeve.
Procrustean bed.
Procrustean
bed.
There you go. Thank you. Well, Anatoly and Peter, you've certainly illuminated the complexity of the human psyche and revealed, I think, very profoundly today just how challenging it is for large amalgamations of people assembled in nation states, or like the Soviet Union, over 11 different time zones, different languages, different cultures, the challenges of both communicating and working together is an awesome challenge, given the spiral dynamics that are ever at play. I know here in the United States, you know, the country is deeply divided, and the two sides are, you know, the orange and the green, and the red and the blue are fighting each other, shouting at each other, wondering why nobody understands what they're trying to say. and if they would just pause and take a course in spiral dynamics, everything would smooth out immeasurably. So thank you for this. It's very, very compelling. And Anatoly, wish you all the best. Your stories of how you've been implementing this in, you know, mainstream companies is quite inspiring. It's a series of small steps that in the end leads us to success. So thank you for that. And then tomorrow, everyone, and on Friday, we're going to be turning again to the issue of public health. Tomorrow, the Nordic Health Alliance and the European Health Futures Forum will be convening their fourth session on public health during this pandemic. And then on Friday, we're having a dialogue with Gary Knoll, who is a scientist and very well-known documentary filmmaker on the issue of vaccines and the pandemic. Vaccines are challenging us around the world. The AstraZeneca vaccine has been stopped in many European countries because of side effects. And there's many questions about the vaccines in relationship to public health, which we're going to explore over the next couple of days, particularly on Friday. So thank you, Anatoly. Thank you, Peter. Excellent job as an interlocutor today. Very well done. And we'll see everybody again tomorrow, same time, same station, here on Humanity Rising at 5 o'clock p.m. Central European Time. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye for now.